the Bible tells us, preach the gospel to everyone, and the sheep will hear the shepherd's voice in the preaching and follow him. John 10:27. So our job.
Okay, so the reason we preach is not because we love everyone and desire everyone's salvation, because God loves and provides and wants everybody's salvation and has provided everyone the means of salvation. That's not the reason you preach. The reason you preach is because we're told to. In other words, law, not love. We're driven. Yeah, we're driven instead of by the passion to make sure that the gospel's known so that people can come and respond. Instead, the passion is God told us to. I'm doing this because I was told to. And that in itself is problemsome. And the other thing that's problemsome in that to me is the sheep issue, because as we've talked about before, sheep means follower. And from our perspective, we would say obviously that the sheep are the ones who listen and learn from the Father, and therefore would listen and learn from the Son. Sheep does not mean unconditionally elected before the foundation of the world to be effectually saved. And he uses the word sheep as if it means that. And that's, of course, poor hermeneutics in my estimation.
And the other thing, too, that I think that this lends itself to, that is this, and I see this, I've seen this in several places now, where because of the idea that there is like, the worldview here isn't that the audience you're speaking to is a bunch of people who are lost and hurting and want something in their lives, and they're looking for something in their lives. And so they're looking to you, and you as the preacher, if you would just meet them where they are, maybe you could perhaps persuade them. Maybe you could actually bring them over to your side and say, hey, Jesus is this thing you're looking for. Jesus is this thing that can fulfill the void in your life that you keep trying to fill with all these other things, and you're hurting and you're lost, and please come. That's not the worldview that's not the audience you're preaching to. That's not the, anthropology of the people you're speaking to. That's not their makeup. That's not how they're made. That's not what's going on with them. What's going on here in this Calvinist worldview is that the vast majority of the people you're speaking to cannot hear what you're saying. They can't hear what you're saying. The other minority that will hear what you're saying always will hear what you're saying. They will always respond positively to what you're saying. They will always come. The other ones will never. Most of them will never. The others always will. These sheep are the ones that always will. They're made differently by the goats. See, they're made of different stuff than the goats. They're not goats, they're sheep. They're totally different types of things. Their anthropology, their makeup as human beings is different sheep as opposed to other goats. So what this leads to is this idea that it doesn't matter how I come across. I don't need to try to meet people where they are. The sheep are going to hear me. I don't need to try to come off as genuine, not come off as a jerk, temper how I come off, become a better preacher, become a better evangelist. I don't need to work on me. That has nothing to do with it. It's they will hear me. So all I need to do is preach the gospel in any old way, however I come across. It doesn't matter. The sheep will hear me.
Well, like in Acts 28, when he spends all day with them, why spend all day trying to persuade them?
Paul is the worst Calvinist. He's the worst. Why would he try to persuade people? They're either sheep or they're not. And so it lends to this sort of thing. And you see this too, right? We talk about frozen chosen, but we also talk about how their preachers come across. We also talk about how they come across as people. If there's just a certain amount of people that will hear you no matter what, and however you do it, there's no reason to work on you and to work on your skills and to work on knowing your audience, even though Paul did that all the time, bringing it to how your audience would understand you, even though Paul did all the time. There's no reason to do that. And so they don't. And you see this kind of thing.